At 44, I thought my life was finally coming together. I was happily married to my wife, Amy, for 10 years. We had a beautiful 8-year-old son and a solid career I had worked tirelessly to build. Everything seemed perfect, but something had been gnawing at me for years. Something I couldn't ignore. Little did I know, the secrets hiding in my past would soon come to light in the most shocking way. It all started with small signs. Amy growing distant, staying out late and becoming more withdrawn. I tried to ignore it, assuming it was just stress from family life and work. But the cracks in our marriage became undeniable, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew. It was a normal evening when Amy handed me divorce papers. She said she wasn't happy anymore, that she was no longer in love with me. I was blindsided. We'd been together for so long, and I had never seen this coming. Despite my best efforts to understand, she left me with no choice but to let her go. After the divorce, everything around me seemed to fall apart. My family distanced themselves from me, leaving me isolated. No one checked in on me. It was as if I had ceased to exist. I fell into a depression, unsure of how to move forward. But I wasn't alone. My friends had my back and pushed me to rebuild. For years after the divorce, I took a huge step and opened my own restaurant. It wasn't easy, but with hard work and determination, it began to thrive. I finally felt like I was back on my feet, and slowly, life started to feel worth living again. 2 years into running my restaurant, I met my future wife. She came to one of our events and told me how much she loved my restaurant. We hit it off immediately. 3 years later, after dating, I asked her to marry me. It felt like I was ready to give love another shot. I never expected the chaos that would follow. Over the next few years, I watched my business flourish. From opening my first restaurant, I eventually grew into a chain of hotels and restaurants. Life was looking up, and I was proud of what I had achieved. I never expected that success would draw my family back into my life with such shocking consequences. When my business success led to an interview with a popular news outlet, I thought it was just another milestone. But after the interview aired, my family, who I hadn't heard from in years, came knocking. I couldn't believe it. They showed up at my workplace, demanding to see me. I wasn't prepared for what happened when I met them in the lobby. My parents, sister, and relatives acted as though nothing had changed. They praised me for my success, congratulated me like I was still part of the family they had abandoned. It felt wrong, and my instincts told me something was amiss. I asked them point blank what they wanted after all these years, and that's when they dropped the bombshell. Amy hadn't just left me because she was unhappy. She had been cheating on me with my cousin Carl, and no one, not one person, had told me the truth. My family had been complicit in hiding this betrayal for over 2 decades. My family revealed that they had supported Amy's affair with Carl. They told me they didn't want to risk upsetting my uncle, Carl's father, who was influential in the family business. The truth hit me like a freight train. Not only had I been betrayed by my wife, but by everyone I thought I could trust. I now had a daughter, my biological daughter, that I never knew about and no one had told me. The shock of the truth shook me to my core. Amy's affair had been kept a secret by everyone, and I was the last to know. My parents admitted they helped hide her pregnancy and the birth of my daughter. They said it was to keep the peace, but it felt like a betrayal on the deepest level. The worst part was not just the affair, but the family's complicity. My parents, sister, and Carl had all chosen to keep me in the dark. They had chosen their loyalty to my uncle over their own flesh and blood. For 20 years, I had been living a lie, while they silently watched me struggle. I couldn't process what I had just learned. My biological daughter, now 20, had grown up believing Carl was her father. How would she feel when she learned the truth? How could I be a father to a daughter I had never met? The guilt weighed heavily on me. I wanted answers, but I also didn't want to talk to my family. They had destroyed everything I thought I knew about myself. I debated reaching out to my daughter, but the fear of rejection and the emotional weight of the situation kept me stuck. Could I even be a father to her after all this time? After much deliberation, I decided to reach out to my daughter on social media. I messaged her, explaining who I was and the truth about her biological father. The uncertainty of her response was terrifying, but I had no other choice. I needed to at least try. For 2 long weeks, I waited in silence. I thought about how my life could change if she chose to embrace me, or how it could shatter if she rejected me. My wife was supportive, but I could feel the weight of the decision on both our shoulders. Finally, I received a message back. She said she had spoken to her mother, Amy, who had reluctantly confirmed the truth. My daughter was shocked, and I could tell she was struggling with the news. She was hesitant, but wanted to meet. I was hopeful, yet terrified. We decided to fly out and meet her in person. I wanted to do this the right way, face to face, with no distractions. Meeting her was a surreal experience, filled with joy, confusion, and a tinge of sadness. She was kind and mature, but I knew she was grappling with a lifetime of lies. During our visit, she opened up about how Carl had been a constant presence in her life. She wasn't sure what to make of me, her biological father, being so suddenly thrust into her world. It was an emotional roller coaster for both of us. When I spoke to my family about my daughter, they couldn't contain their panic. My uncle's wrath was inevitable, and my family feared it. They had spent 20 years covering up their actions, and now it was all coming undone. But this time, I wasn't going to let them dictate my life anymore. My parents and sister sent emails, begging for forgiveness. They apologized for abandoning me and for helping Amy keep the secret. But I wasn't sure if their apologies meant anything anymore. They had caused too much pain, and I wasn't ready to let them back into my life. I now had a daughter, but I also had to protect my own family. My wife was supportive, but this wasn't just about us anymore. My daughter needed time to process, and I didn't want to force anything on her. I had to let her decide if she wanted a relationship with me. As much as I wanted closure, I knew I couldn't forgive my family right now. They had abandoned me when I needed them the most. The betrayal had cut too deep. The emotional toll it had taken on me was too much to bear, and I wasn't ready to rebuild those relationships. After the initial shock, my daughter and I started to form a tentative bond. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to try. We began to meet more regularly, taking baby steps in building a relationship. She wasn't ready to call me Dad, and that was okay. I just wanted to be a part of her life. The more I got to know my daughter, the more I realized how much I had missed. She was smart, kind, and resilient, but she had also been deeply hurt by the lies. She wasn't sure where she fit in, and neither was I. It hit me one day. No matter how much I tried to make up for lost time, the years spent apart were never coming back. But I could still be a part of her future. I could still build a relationship, even if it was starting from scratch. My family tried once more to apologize. They begged for forgiveness, offering explanation for why they had kept the secret. But by now, their words fell hollow. I had already made peace with the idea of letting them go. They didn't deserve a place in my life anymore. I focused on my own family. My wife, son, and I were moving forward, and that was all that mattered. My daughter was slowly becoming a part of our lives, and I was doing my best to guide her through this confusing time. The past was behind me, and I was building a future worth fighting for. The truth was painful, but it had set me free. I wasn't bound by the lies of my past anymore. My daughter and I had started to form a new bond, and while it would take time, I was hopeful. As for my family, they could stay in the past where they belonged. I had found my peace, and I would make sure protected for the rest of my life.